your girl, Steph.
The best is yet to come. Your best is inside of you. Your best is yet to come. Your best is inside of you.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of The Best Is Yet to Come. I am your host, Stephanie SEIGLE, and we have another show, great show lined up for you tonight. However, before I introduce our guests, I just want to say once again, thank you so much for all your support. I ask that you continue to watch the show and share. We've been getting some great reviews and we want to continue that. Also, before I introduce our guests and we get into our show, I want to give a salute to three amazing people. A couple of weeks ago, I had the honor to sit in on a city council meeting that was at City Hall. And a lot of people came and represented the cause for reentry. I want to give a salute to Christopher Conway from Out for Good. Also, Joseph Bennett from Yard Time Entertainment, and Darnice Watson, who is the owner of Crossroad. As you all may know, both Christopher and Joseph have been a guest on The Best Is Yet to Come. We are hoping to have Darnice and the three of them together on the show. So I just want to salute them because they were there, they showed up and showed out, and they didn't get exactly what they were asking for, but they got close to it. So we need to continue to support not only this cause, but other causes that affect us in the community. So once again, I'm saluting them. Thank you. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest tonight. Her name is Precious.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Good. So, Precious Angel Alexander. How did you come about that name?
Well, my mom named me Precious Angel because I was born at 6 months. I weighed 1 pound, 7 ounces. I stayed in the hospital for 3 months before she could bring me home. So that's how I got my name.
Okay, so you came out the womb fighting.
Yes, I did.
Okay, all right. So tonight, the topic is overcoming obstacles and working or living your destiny, your purposeful destiny. What does that mean to you?
Well, that means my life.
Okay.
Considering my entry of birth was a fight.
Okay.
My life was very rough, like most people in our Boston communities. Just trying to grow and strive to be the best you can be, beat the odds, and not be what you see around you. So
Okay. All
just
right.
striving to be better than what you see.
Okay. All right. Tell us who Precious Angel Alexander is.
Well, I'm a mother. I'm an entrepreneur. I, like most people, grew up in poverty. Strived, went to college, worked in a lot of like DYS, DCF group homes with at-risk youth, and tried to be a positive role model for the kids in our community to show them something different, that there's hope, there you can change and be better.
Okay. Now, is it because of your own experiences that you felt that you had something to give back to the community?
Yes. So I felt like I could give them a positive role model.
Okay.
You know, I didn't have that growing up.
Okay.
I had people who I didn't want to be like, so I, you know, decided to do the exact opposite. So I just felt like I could be the positive role model that they need. Most kids in group homes and foster care, they don't have, you know, good support systems or positive role models. So just to see someone who is young and, you know, beat the odds as they can and will, just to show them something different.
Now, you know, that's when this is our second season of the show. And when the show first started, you know, it was pretty much the same platform. Like I always say, that we want to be a resource for the community. But I feel like it's taken on a life of its own, going in a particular direction. And it's funny that you said what you just said, because a lot of the guests that have, well, all the guests that have been on this show thus far, it's their own experience that have propelled them to want to do more to help our community, because they feel that there's not enough resources out there. Just as I just spoke of the three people, you know, how they, you know, fought to see a change come about with reentry. What are your thoughts on that?
With reentry, I feel like there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I went to college for criminal justice, so being in the field with mental health and behavioral health wasn't my, you know, first outlook. I wanted to do reentry in the criminal justice system in the prisons, and I kind of detoured from that because there wasn't support, and the system really didn't want to support these, you know, inmates and people that, you know, committed crimes and things, because it's a revolving door. If people don't continue to go back to prison, they don't have a job. So I kind of stepped back and try to find my own way of helping the community in a different light.
So in other words, you're trying to be a source, a resource, to be proactive. If you can make a difference in some youth life, maybe they won't go down the path, and that would end them up in incarceration. Is that what I'm understanding you to say?
I like to work with the youth to try to detour them to the positive direction before they become an adult.
Okay.
You know, every, you know, kid makes mistakes, but kind of trying to show them like there's another route, you know, that you can take before you get there, before you're an adult, and, you know, that's it for you. You know, so just showing them like there's hope and there's a change that you can make to also your life while you're still young.
Okay, all right. Now, you talked about when you did your intro that you're an entrepreneur. Tell us about your business.
So I'm self-employed.
Okay.
My business is Destined. I work with youth with mental health and behavioral health issues. So I kind of try to mentor them and give them that, you know, other option of like changing your life and working on you, putting you first, and just focusing on what makes you happy and your goals and where you want to, you know, see your life.
Okay. Now, at what point, like you said, you started out in criminal justice. At what point did you make the switch, and when did you start the business?
So I made the switch originally when I graduated from high school. College wasn't like on my mind, but I went. I started off doing business management, which was a struggle, and it just didn't come natural to me. I remember studying in the library for like 5 hours trying to, you know, make it work, and, you know, I was like, this is not going to work. So I switched colleges, switched my major, and I studied criminal justice. And when I did that, it was just, I got A's and B's, and I was like, oh wow, this is like come natural to me, so let me just do this.
Right.
And then I always had a passion to want to see people do better, so it worked, you know. So then with my experience of working in like group homes and DCF, juvenile prisons, I kind of always work with youth, but to work with them in the community was better because I can really work with them. When they're in a detention center or a group home, they're already like placed, so you really can't do much. You could, but it's not the same as them in the community. So once I started to work with them in the community, I just decided to have my own business, to work with them in a more positive light, to give them that hope that we all need.
Right. Now, how rewarding has that been for you?
It's pretty rewarding. I mean, you know, even just helping one person, just changing, you know, one person's life is enough, you know. Sometimes it's hard, you know, it's a lot of work, but it's work that needs to be done in our community, because when I was a kid, they didn't have these services, you know, even with me, you know. So I think it's great because the help is there, and it's coming from our community, which kids need people that they can relate to. That's a big thing, and when they feel like they can't relate, there's a disconnect. But when they feel like they could relate, it just draws them closer, and that's when you're able to see the change some of the time.
Now, what are some of the obstacles that you feel that you have faced while, you know, doing this work?
There's a lot, you know. You see some people that, some kids that they don't have the loving, nurturing family that, you know, some people have. Some kids really struggle. Some kids feel really hopeless. And, you know, that's really hurtful when a kid feels like they just can't do it. Like they feel hopeless. They feel powerless. They feel like it's impossible for them. You know, because no one ever poured into them. It's just negativity, you know. And I feel like that's a big obstacle when you're dealing with kids, because if they don't have the confidence and they don't believe in themselves, that's already a hindrance. So I see that a lot, and that is really a big obstacle that I go through, and just seeing kids coming from different abusive homes and different situations, that's really less fortunate.
Okay. Now, what are some things that you do or have done to overcome those obstacles?
So I do a lot of like self-work within themselves. You know, we go over goals. We do work where I ask them, what are some of your personal goals? Where do you see your life in 5 years? You know, I do a lot of like therapeutic work where I let them set the tone of like where you are now, where do you want to be in your future? You know, how was your past? So to try to get them to understand who they are as a person, to more so focus on where they want to be. And just because you're in this situation, that doesn't mean it's permanent. So it's a lot of like self-individual work with them.
Okay. So the work that you do is not a cookie cutter, would you say?
Because everyone's different.
Okay, good. Now, how long have you been doing this?
Between working in the detention centers to now, about 12 years.
Okay.
So I started like pretty young.
Okay. And in addition to the business and working within the community, you also are a single mom.
Yes.
Right. And your daughter is not 12 years old or older.
No.
So how do you balance all that?
Definitely support of, you know, family and friends, because in this field, you know, you're out there, you know. Still putting her first, you know, spending that time with her, having her work on herself. She's 8, so, you know, giving her, pouring into her, you know, doing things with her, giving her the confidence that she needs, and kind of just helping her understand, like, this, how life could be, you know, and just making sure I really pour into her while she was really young.
Okay. All right. Now, I know some people feel that to work all day with children, a youth, and then come home, do you see any similarities? You know, I mean, because all kids, you know, they may have, maybe, you know, because I understand being in the field, there could be days that you work 5 hours. There could be other days that you work 12 to 18 hours. How does that work into your plan time with her as a single mom?
So I try to keep my day at a consistent schedule while she's in school.
Okay.
If I have to go a few hours over that, I try to keep it so that I'm still able to spend that time with her. I never want to feel like I'm just working, and she gets the short end of the stick.
Right.
So I set my day up to where I'm working a good amount of hours while she's mostly in school.
Okay, great.
And a few hours after that, if I have to do, you know, a few sessions, I make that work. but then she always gets my time.
Okay, good.
You know.
Good. All right. In addition to the business that you mentioned, you also have Angel. Is it Angel Apparels?
Oh, Precious Angel Apparel.
Okay.
So I grew
Tell
up
us
in
about
church.
that.
God was like, I felt like just from birth, God had a plan for me. So I always was close to God. I grew up in church, going to church, reading the Bible, you know. And I decided that I wanted to have a clothing line that was faith-based.
Okay.
And I started doing that probably about, I want to say like 2 years ago.
Okay.
Just because I didn't see it. You know, I see people with their clothing line during the pandemic. Everyone's pushing the business. I'm like, I want to do something different. You know, I want people to, you know, see God, see, you know, wear their, you know, spirituality on their sleeve. So I wanted to really make an impact on that level,
Okay.
you know, because you really don't see that. You know, you see all kinds of cute shirts, outfits with these different quotes, but nothing comes from the scripture. So
Okay.
I wanted to bring that aspect.
And how's that going?
It's going well.
That's good. That's good. Now, do you have a website with that?
Yes, so it's Precious
Can you-
Angel. Oh, sorry. It's PreciousAngelApparel.com.
Okay.
So that's my website for the clothing line.
Great. Okay. All right. Now, let's switch gears here a little bit. Living in the community, I know that you are very much aware of the Mass Cast project with our homeless population. What are your thoughts, opinions on that?
I feel like with that, there's a lot that needs to be done. And we need resources, we need funding to really get to the root of the problem of the addiction and just the homelessness. I don't think it can happen overnight, but I feel like more needs to be done than what has been done. I know they took the tents down, but that's still a place when you even drive through. It just gives you a sense of like gratitude of life, but really sad to see, you know, these people living like this. I feel like a lot needs to be done. You know, we're building all around the community, all these buildings, condos for in the community, but what about the people who really don't have anywhere to go?
Right.
You know, we can build shelters for them. You know, it doesn't just have to be building condos, building buildings, building office spaces that are overpriced in the Boston area where people really can't afford to live.
Right.
And then on top of that, that many people just segregated in that area of homelessness and addiction is a problem. There needs to be way more resources than we have.
Now, one of the things that I do know, because I'm right there in the heart of it, and something that I've talked about with my other guests on here, or some of my other guests, and the motto is housing first. I understand that housing is a big factor and a very important factor in one's life, but my personal opinion is if the underlying issues are not addressed, then it's just going to be a revolving door. I often, and I voice this not only to the guests that are on my show or to people that are listening, I also voice this to the powers to be. I feel like a lot of time when we do things like this, and I say we because it's in our community, like I said, I'm right in the heart of it. I do work there. And I feel a lot of times we are just setting people up for failure because we are not addressing the underlying issues, the substance abuse, the mental health issues. I feel like those things need to definitely be addressed too. It's almost, in my opinion, that let's just move them away so the eye can't see them. Let's move them somewhere else. But it continues. What are your thoughts on that?
I do agree with that. A lot of it is mental health. Like when you think about the root issue of it, no one just woke up and said, I want to be a drug addict,
Right.
you know? And I feel like people look down on them because of their circumstances. The mental health definitely needs to be taken care of, and as well as treatment. You know, there should be way more, you know, treatment programs for these people. And you have to remember, they didn't just start with opioids. Something occurred to them. Maybe they had PTSD. Maybe they were in pain. Maybe something, you know, got in the way of that and got them to where they are. And it's bigger. It's the pharmaceutical company, you know, and these doctors prescribing these things, knowing that it's no good for anyone. You know, it's just a legal way to make money. You know, and it's unfortunate because a lot of people are suffering. If you don't handle their mental health and their substance abuse, even if you put them in an apartment, that can go.
Right.
You know, because
Right.
they have bigger issues than what you're trying to just put them in a place. Their mental health,
Right.
their substance abuse.
Right.
If they're an addict, let's say they run out their money and they can't pay their rent, then they're evicted.
Right.
So then you have another problem, you know.
Right.
So just really getting to the root cause of where they are, why they are there, and getting them the necessary steps to give them a successful plan out,
Right.
you know.
Now, what is your understanding about harm reduction, and what are your thoughts on that?
For me, I feel like harm reduction, there's a lot with it. I know, you know, there's things in our community that kind of let people use drugs like a gateway to kind of, okay, just give them clean needles or just give them Narcan or different things like that, where it's like you're kind of enabling them, you know. So I feel like things like that is like, are we trying to help them or hurt them, or just keep them in the same boat that they're in? Which sometimes I feel like that's the case when you're dealing with people in our community.
Okay. And now, we all are entitled to, you know, our opinion, and some may argue that harm reduction is great because no one, as we talked about, is cookie cutter. Well, we shouldn't use a cookie cutter method for anyone because we are all individual people. In some sense, I do agree with you. And like I say, some may argue that that's the only way that someone can, you know, get to sobriety, if you will, because there's different levels to harm reduction. Even the medication program, the MAT program, that is considered to fall up under harm reduction. You know, it's not just the, you know, giving the clean needles and stuff like that. Now, what do you think about the medication programs?
With that, I feel like that too is, like I said, I feel like it all starts with the, you know, pharmaceutical companies and
Okay.
how they distribute these medications to people in our community. I feel like that's a multi-billion-dollar company, and it has to start there, you know, not allowing them to, you know, even if the people do need medication, but there should be a cap on things. There should be limits to each individual when it comes to dispersing all these medications and the risk of it, you know, in addition to dealing with your mental health. It shouldn't just be, not saying that it's easily accessed, but it shouldn't be accessed. I think there should be levels to the care that you get, you know, the quality of the care. If you need medication, okay, you should have, you know, deal with someone for your mental health. And there should be, you know, just levels and stipulations behind it. It shouldn't just be, you know, free, not free, but like,
Just given, readily given. Yes.
Right.
I know when I was in school and I did my internship, this was many moons ago, I did an internship at the Andrew Detox, which is no longer, well, it's not no longer in, on, what is it, Long Island shelter. That place is closed down. When we had someone to come in, they started on a particular dose and they would taper it off. You don't see that too much now. They would start on methadone. I don't even think they were using Suboxone at this particular time, at this particular detox. But they would start on methadone, and then they would be tapered off. Within a week's time, they would be tapered off. You don't see that too much these days.
No.
And that's, you know, unfortunate, because what we see is that people then become addicted to the medication that they are prescribed.
Right.
And then also just working in the field and, you know, talking with people that I counsel, you will hear a lot of them when they can't get that or the dose is not high enough, they still get high. And they're getting high with stuff that fentanyl is in it,
Right.
you know, man-made. So what do you think that we can do as a community to help make those changes that are needed, that we all talk about that's needed?
I think us as a community, we have to, you know, definitely stick together and wanting to make those changes, going down to the State House, making those changes, but also different, you know, procedures and protocols should be in place, like the program you mentioned where you cut them off, you know, not keep giving it to them. Cut them off so they can be sober and see how it feels to be sober, you know. And I think that's a great method, and that should be universal, you know. It shouldn't just be, you know, take it, increase it, back, give you something else to replace that. It should really be tapered down because the goal is sobriety. But how can you expect someone to be sober if they're not sober, if you don't, you know?
Right. And I think that it has kind of gone, and I'm not saying that at some point someone thought that this was a great idea, and maybe there was research done and it proved to work, but I see a lot, instead of it being decreased, the goal, at least from the clients that I work with, is to have it increased, their dosage to, you know, be increased. And, you know, so like you said, where does the sobriety come in, and how do you reach those goals if at some point you're not being tapered off of the medication?
Right.
Yeah.
And also I think support is a big thing. We need people that really want to see people sober, you know, really want to help them, because that doesn't make any sense. If you want someone to get sober, what do? You know, you take them off what they're addicted to. And really, you know, it's a hard process, but even having that support from, you know, therapists or, you know, groups or different things, let it be like you're really working, you know, with your mental health, with your addiction, you're really working, and even having a constant communication between the lines of, you know, resources that you're using, you know, because that's important too.
Right.
So everyone's on the same page. So if that's really the goal, then you can really, if you really want to get sober, there's hope, you know, because I'm sure some people feel like there's really no hope.
Right. Now, one of the things I feel, and this is just, you know, my experience in the field, mental health is a big factor, I believe. You will have clients that would say to you, or their behavior will dictate that they want the sobriety, but they are afraid of what they would look like for them, in terms of a lot of people self-medicate to escape from what their reality is, or they try to escape from PTSD. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's accurate. You know, it's fear, you know, and that's why it's so important to tackle that mental health, because it's all surrounded by fear and not knowing how to cope when you're dealing with things. So that's all a mental health issue. You know, some people get high to suppress their pain, what they've been through, you know, just to get through the day, when all that is surrounded by fear and mental health. You know, so that's why it's so important to prioritize the mental health, you know, so that they can learn, you know, to cope through life, and because life's hard, you know, for everyone, you know, but just learning and teaching them strategies to and ways to cope through things, and having, you know, positive methods that they can use instead of getting high. You know, try something else, try something positive, turning those negative, you know, coping skills, I would say, to positive ones, you know, and that's a big factor.
Right. As you started off by saying, no one wakes up and say they want to be an addict, and I feel that it comes a point in time in a lot of people's life, it's no longer about them getting high, it's more about them surviving. The fear of, and statistics has shown too, that people can die from certain opiates, you know, withdrawal and stuff. So I think a lot of time, the people that we service, it has gone beyond them just, you know, doing it just to get high. Yes, maybe still to suppress things, but also if they don't, then the fear of dying, you know, is there, and that's real. What do you think about that? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
As you said that, I just thought about the program that you used to work in, because that's why it's so important to slowly taper them off, so that it's a healthy method, not an unhealthy method, because we all know with drugs and different opiates, there's sicknesses that come with that once you're weaned off. So just being proactive and strategic on how the medicine or the drug is tapered down, and that's why that is, so important.
Okay, all right. In your own personal life, have you, a loved one, dealt with mental health issues or substance usage that you want to, talk about or share? And what did that look like, if so?
I feel like everyone deals with mental health.
I know you always say that.
Everyone,
Right,
deals with mental health. Just
right.
living life is,
Right.
I feel like everyone, deals with it in some capacity. For me personally, I grew up with people in my family that were addicted to different substances, and a family of a lot of mental health issues. So it was always around me. And that's the connection that I've seen growing up, where the mental health wasn't addressed, drugs were introduced, and it was just a gateway, and that's kind of like how I grew up. So I've seen it on, both hands, untreated mental health and, being addicted to different drugs. And I just felt like that's not where I wanted to go, but it showed me the importance of taking care of you.
Right.
Your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual health, your emotional health. Like, everything is so equally important. It's not one's more important to the other, but there's reasons why people, detour towards different things,
Right.
And it's not just drugs. I mean, shopping could be an addiction,
Right.
like there's different, addictions,
Absolutely.
eating could be an addiction,
Absolutely.
So there's different kinds of addictions, but just understanding like how your mental health is affecting who you are on a day-to-day. And that's why I feel like it's so important to take care of that, because your brain's the first thing.
Right.
Everything else kind of falls after.
Right.
So I think mental health is very important. As a kid, there wasn't any therapist in my home, or, like no real service. A lot of people in my family, they're like, oh, therapy, push it to the side, but not understanding that it was really needed. There's a lot of people that struggled with different things and needed that support that they didn't get, and hence that was some of the reason why different choices and decisions were made. So I think it's very important.
Right. One of the things that I have often shared, someone said to me the other day, Stephanie, when are you going to tell your story? But I feel like, because we all have a story, I feel like each time I have a guest on, something about their story I can personally relate to. And one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this field and what I do is, especially like with the reentry, and I talked about this, I forget whether it was the first show or the second show, but I talked about this. One of my older brothers that was I love them all, but he and I was so close. And to see his life spiral out of control because of substance use, and that's what I thought it was initially, but as I learned more and more about the field, clearly there was some underlying mental health issues that had not been addressed. Even with the reentry, another reason why I'm so passionate about that and being supportive in any way that I can, because this same brother passed away. He was incarcerated when he passed away. And a lot of his crimes that he did, they were petty stuff, you know what I'm saying? I mean, not justifying what he did, but it was, petty stuff. And it was like a revolving door. And I just said the other day that, speaking to someone, I feel that if a lot of services that we have in place now, and there is still a lot more that is needed, but if we had some of those services in place when he was incarcerated or kept being a revolving door, maybe things would have looked different, for him. So, like you said, we all have some form of mental health. I mean, and I've even been clear about, I've gone through my own depression, maybe not as severe as someone else. And what bothers me with that, certain communities, like you said, in your home, there wasn't therapy. In our community, I think we've gotten better, but we still need to get even better, because a lot of us feel like, oh, therapist, mental health, that's taboo. What goes on in the home stays in the home. But if the help is on the outside, then that's where it needs to be. We need to change our narratives when it comes to that. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just so important, like you say, about taking care of self. I believe in that balance, and you said it so well. It all has to be in place. Spiritually, emotionally, physically, all that. I agree 100%, with you. And, I feel like it's going to take all of us, like you said, to come together. And it's not going to happen overnight. But if we keep chipping away, eventually we will reach, the goals that we set out to meet.
Right.
Yeah. Let's talk about your daughter a little bit here. I know you're the guest, but let's talk about her. 7 years old and an author, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
What was that experience like?
Well, that started during the pandemic.
Okay.
We were all shut down. And we were just thinking of ideas. I was worried about the clothing line, and I'm like, what do you want to do, And she goes, I want to write a book. And I'm like, a book? About what? She's like, money. I'm like, oh, okay, let's figure this out. So we started to write the book, and, she gave me the ideas and the pictures and what she wants things to look like. And we worked on it for about a year.
Okay.
Now she's 8, and we published the book last year. And that was good. That was a nice accomplishment. Sometimes I still can't believe it. My daughter's 8 and she's an author. But her book is called Money is a Gift, and it teaches kids about money and how you have to earn money. It's not just giving, because, some kids feel like it just falls off the trees.
Right.
So, it's about money, and it teaches kids how to save, invest, tithe, and donate.
Okay.
I try to instill those things in her about money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good way to a good resource to teach kids about how you have to earn your money.
Okay.
And then you can, buy things that you like and save it. Like I said, we go to church, and she tithes her money, and she donates, some things. And just trying to teach her the gratitude of money, that it's just not about spending it, or keeping it. Sometimes she wants to save hers and spend mine, but I'm like, no, you have your own.
Right.
But just teaching her the value of money.
Okay.
So that's
now, if one wanted to purchase her book, where could they get her book, if you could?
Okay, so her book is sold on Amazon, Target, and Barnes and Nobles, and it's called, Money is a Gift.
Okay, great. Now, let's go back to the work that you do. Do you kind of use some of the same techniques? Do you find the techniques that you use with your daughter kind of the same that you use with the children, the kids that you work with, the youth that you work with, and vice versa? And how do you balance that?
So sometimes I do. She's 8, and some of the kids that I work with, they are like teenagers. So I can use some things, but I just try to find the value in each kid that I work with.
Okay.
And I balance it by just teaching them, like, self is important. Put you first. Deal with your mental health. Deal with your spiritual health. If you, have it. Your physical health, like, just deal with you as an individual. So I try to use that to, build confidence, build self-esteem, build, like, a way out, if you will.
Okay, all right. Now, how involved are you with the children that you, well, the youth that you work with, how involved are you with, like, their school, the court system, different other providers that may be involved in their lives?
So mostly, yeah, I am involved with the school. Any like community supports, family supports, courts if needed. Some of them don't require the court, but some of them just require, you know, DCF or different things like different other collaterals of therapy and different things. And what I try to do is find something for every kid that I work with to do in the community, whether it's a job, dance, you know, something rooted in the community for something to do, whether it's an after school program, but really getting them involved in the community that we live in.
Okay. Now, why in the community?
The community, because this is where it all begins. And like our community, yes, we need work, but we've come a long way as far as like providing services. A lot of people have different businesses and different, there's a lot of resources that we have within our community. And it's no better than to be involved with the community that you live in, to, you know, build relationships and rapport with different people. You never know, you know, who you can meet, where that relationship will go.
Right.
So kind of working with them in the community like that.
So almost, if I understand you correctly, like fostering the ideal of taking care of self, but also taking care of the community where you live.
Right.
Pouring back into the community.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I find that a lot of people in our community, they, whether everyone has a story, they always want to go back to where it started for them, which is in our community. So I think that's what better way is it to work with the kids that live in your community.
Right. That's the reason why I really, and I will continue to salute and shout them out, because that's one thing, the three groups that I mentioned, or the three individual and their companies that I mentioned, that's one thing that they all are passionate about, bringing it back home, you know,
Right.
providing the services within, you know, our community. And that's why I also say that they should not have to compete with larger organizations when they know what it's like, you know, because they have gone through a lot of, you know, situations that we see that's still going on in our community. So I just feel like I will continue, you know, with that. What are some things that you plan to do moving forward with Destined, Are We?
Well, I always wanted to start like a residential group home setting where you come in, whether at risk or not, you take care of your mental health, you take care of you and kind of set you up, even like financially, work with the resources in our community to kind of work with you with your mental health, your, you know, finances, and your success, whether you want to go to college, whether you want, you know, to have your own business, but really having it to be like a one-stop shop of resources and success to take you from one end to the next.
Okay. Now, in the ideal world, how long would you say that the program would be? And what ages would you target?
So I would target from like 12 up to 18. I would like for it to be a long-term program, like at least a year, like 3 to 5 years, where they can kind of navigate through, so that we can see the beginning to the end. Yeah, I would like for it to be a long-term program, because some of the programs we have here is very short-term. You know, it's very short, so it's like kind of hard to work with an individual and, you know, prepare them, get them ready for success in such a short period of time when they're dealing with, you know, problems at home, problems in school, mental health issues, you know, different things like that. Like, you want to get them in and be able to take the time needed to work with them to get them where they need to be.
Okay. Now, would this be residential or?
Yeah, I'm thinking of like a residential.
Right. Do you know of any places? I mean, definitely, I'm not aware of any in our community that kind of model that.
No, there used to be a lot of like independent livings. Those all got shut down, so we really don't have anything in our community besides like residential group homes settings, which then is not the best, but the independent livings that were all in our community are no longer there, which I feel like those were a good help to kind of get people to where they are.
Okay. Now, what are some of these that used to be in the community? I'm not aware.
So there was like independent living homes where kids would live there and they would help them with like housing and just to be living on their own.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. All right. Now, you said age 12. Why 12?
12 is that age where it's like a transition.
Okay.
So you go from like a kid to like a preteen. A lot of things happen in that time. And I feel like a lot goes on there. So I think that's the perfect age to start.
I was playing devil's advocate a little bit. I often tell, and I think I've shared this with you, tell parents that have daughters, they are so sweet, they are so loving, they are just the moon, the sun, everything. It's something about them when they hit 12. It's like, child, where did you come from? Yeah. I've raised 2 daughters, okay? And we have beautiful relationships now, and we have beautiful relationships when they were younger. But it was something about that age 12 until they at least hit 16. It's like, where did this child come from?
Yeah. It's like you just, a light goes off and you just find yourself. I remember when I was 12, that was like the peak of my age where I like just transformed. So I definitely feel like something goes off at that age.
Right. We need to do some research on that to try to figure that out.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That is good. So what else can we expect from Precious, Angel, Destiny? First, before we go there, please explain to the audience why or where did you come up with the name Destined Are We?
So I came with the name Destined Are We because I always like to be different. So, and just to say that we're all destined for greatness. I didn't want to put it like destined for greatness because that sounds like so cliche, but you know, we're all, you know, destined for greatness, and it's not just you, it's not just, you know, me, it's we collectively, you know. So I came with the name to just give the hope to know that we're all destined together, and as long as we're in this together, we can make it through, and kind of just give hope.
Okay. So if a mom reached out to you, she has a 12-year-old preteen, she's pulling her hair out, this child is staying out past her curfew, smoking and doing things that her parents can't believe that she's doing. What kind of support do you lend to situations like that?
Definitely come in. You know, usually I work with like a clinician, and we provide like intense, you know, home therapy, where we're coming in the home, we're working on both mom and the daughter, not just the daughter, you know, but the family as a whole, because it's, you know, we're all a reflection of our parents, whether you like to admit it or not. But, you know, work with her on like respect is a big thing, because if she's staying out late, she's not respecting mom's rules, boundaries. That's a big thing, and just really being honest and sharing with her options. You know, a lot of now in the system today, the kids have a lot of power, and a lot of parents feel powerless, but the parents do have options. You know, sometimes they're not the best, but they do have options to ways they can navigate to kind of support them and support the kids. But I would definitely work with her on like what's the root cause of why are you doing these things? Why are you disobeying your mom? Why are you falling into all these things? Because a lot of it can be like peer pressure and things like that. So just kind of get into the root cause and kind of help navigate as a family to work on making things better.
Now, you just said that parents have options. They're not necessarily the best options. What are some of these options that are out?
what I see now a lot is parents putting a CRA, which was formerly called a chins, on kids that don't want to go to school, acting in school, staying out late, you know, and that just puts the court system involved as like a gateway to kind of steer the kid back to like a routine. That can be a good or bad thing. Some kids, they follow it, you know, it scares them a little bit, and they're like, oh no, I don't want a probation officer, you know, I don't want someone watching me, or, you know, telling me I have to come in at 5 o'clock, or whatever the, you know, stipulations are. And then sometimes it doesn't work. The kid still rebels, and they can end up, you know, locked up, or, you know, in a residential program. So it's good and bad options, but that's one that I see a lot used. A lot of group homes, you know, some parents get fed up, you know, and they just feel like they can't take anymore. It's too much, you know, and they put some of the kids in group homes where they'll stay there for about a year, 6 months to a year, and then they come home, and hopefully that, you know, changes the dynamic of the, you know, different things that the kid was doing. So there are some options. But again, like, giving the kids another outlet to, instead of hanging out with friends, maybe join a dance group, maybe join something in the community, you know. There's all different kind of resources that we can take advantage in our own community. Giving them a positive thing to kind of detour to.
Right. I guess that may answer what was going to be my next question, was what are things that could be done within the home before it progresses to involving the courts, child being removed from the home? What are some things, in your opinion, that could be done?
Definitely taking care of the mental health, and family therapy is a big one. Even just having a mentor that the kid can have like one-on-one time with, you know, to kind of hang out with, talk to, a therapist, having that outlet, you know. Maybe some like big sister programs, like there's all different kinds of things that can be done maybe before. A lot of time kids are just bored, you know, and they really don't have nothing to do, peer pressure or, you know, bad influences like, you know, we've all experienced, but just giving them that positive outlet and using the resources that we have in the community to kind of, and deal while still dealing with their mental health, to help navigate them.
Now, not playing devil's advocate here, one of my guests, he's actually have been a reoccurring guest. When he told his story, he talked about he grew up in a nice neighborhood, not necessarily a two-parent home, but both parents were very involved in his life. His mom had him involved in all kind of community activities, sports and stuff. He went to a good school, but still deviated and did things that his mother could not believe that he would do. I mean, thank God he's turned his life around and he's actually a positive person. But what would you say to a parent, like, you know, come to you and she said, I have this child in all kind of activities, we have meals together, I have him in the best schools, I'm doing X, Y, and Z, I'm trying to be the best parent I can possibly be, but this child is still, what would you say to a parent that came to you like that?
And so sometimes they come like that. It's like you got it all together and you're like, where did I go wrong, you know? And with that, again, there's something going on. There's some disconnect. Like, yeah, mom could be providing everything, dad could be involved, you know, everything could be, you know, not perfect, but the best that they can do, and still, and I feel like some cases is peer pressure, sometimes you just want to rebel, you know, but more so, why are you choosing to make those decisions? Like, what is it that you feel like you're not getting? Because it's something that a kid feels like somewhere is lacking. And sometimes that's hard to express or, you know, talk about. But getting down to the deep root of why you're doing these things. Because we all have a why we do the things we do. And if you don't know why you're doing it, then maybe you should be doing it. But just really get into the why you're doing these things. how are you feeling? What's going on with you? So it's trying to get to the deep root of that, and maybe it will be something that mom had no idea, you know, but just really getting to the root of the why.
Okay. Well, one of the things I try really hard to be is to be transparent. And like I say, so many different stories that have been shared here. At some point in my life, I was able, if not had a similar situation, I could relate to it myself. I was speaking of this gentleman, this young man, but I too experienced that with my oldest son. I mean, and they too were friends. That's how I came to know the young man that was on my show. My son lived a similar life, and, you know, he took some wrong turns. And he and I, you know, I've always tried to be open and allow my children to be open with me as long as they come in a respectful way. And, you know, I've had plenty of conversation, you know, with him. Thank God to, you know, he's gotten his life on track. He's a father of two. But I would ask him, how is it that you grew up in this? And I never tried to, you know, make them feel like, oh, they're all the same, because they are each individual. And I, you know, love them all the same, but try to give them that individualized attention. And I would have conversations with him and ask him, well, why would you do some of the things that you did? And he would say, Mommy, it had nothing to do with you. You were a great mom. However, like you said, that peer pressure, once you leave home, that peer pressure out there is really strong. It's real. And I'm like, well, what could I have done differently? And he would say to me, Mommy, it's nothing that you could have done differently. So how do we as parents, I don't want to say win against peer pressure, but for lack of a better way of saying it, how do we?
Honestly, I don't think you do.
Okay.
I don't think you do, because the power of influence is there, and it's going to be there no matter what. I think the best thing to do is teach them. You know, everything's a learning moment, and just teaching them so they can make better decisions, or just understand that line of communication, leave it open. So when things do happen or something does go wrong, they can come to you and say, Mom, this happened today. I know you're not going to like it, but I don't know what to do, you know? So just leaving that level of communication, because the peer pressure, the influences is going to happen no matter what. There's really nothing you can do.
Right.
You know, we can't lock them in the box for the rest of their life, you know, but, you know, it's going to happen, you know, and you just hope and pray they make the best choices, and if they don't, that they can learn from their mistakes, but more importantly, they feel comfortable enough with you to come to you and tell you what's going on.
Right, right. Now, do you feel this, and not that I'm making excuses for anything or anyone's behavior or stuff that they may have done that, you know, we look at and say, well, why did this person do that? Even with myself. But I feel that some things that, when I even look back on my childhood and my growing up, some things that I did, whether it be right or wrong, I think it helped shape who I am today. There were consequences. Sometimes, what is it, those natural consequences are the best teachers. And like I said, I can even look at my life and some of the things that I did. I'm sure that my grandparents, because I was raised by my grandparents, was like, what was this child thinking? But it also, like I said, shaped who I am today. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's true. You know, definitely everyone's going to make mistakes. Everyone's going to detour. No one's going to have just a perfect, straight, narrow life. Those influences, the peer pressure, all that shapes who you are, and it makes you stronger in the end, because the lessons are to be learned from. You know, if you're not learning from the lessons, then, you know, what's the point? That's how you grow. But just really just focusing on learning from what you do and learning why you're doing it, you know. So just understanding, you know, why you're doing things.
Okay. All right. Wow. That time has flew by. We have a couple more minutes, so before we wrap this up, I would like for you to leave some parting words with our audience, if you will.
I would say, no matter what you do, no matter where you go in life, just always strive to be the best person that you can be. Never stop giving up, never give up on yourself, and always work on making you better and really take care of your health all around.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Precious, for being our guest tonight. And as we wrap up another show, this time just flew by, wow. As we're going to have you back on again. As we wrap up another show, in closing, I bid you peace, love, and blessing. And remember, the best is always yet to come. Thank you.